Hello, YouTube. It is me, Mark, again with Collaborate with Mark, and also my co-host. Care to introduce yourself, Vale?
Hey everyone, I'm Vale, and I'm super excited to be here with Mark today. We're going to have a lot of fun, and hopefully you'll enjoy the conversation. Let's dive right in.
Yeah. I'm going to lean on you a little bit more today, Vale, than I have in the past, and so I'm looking to see where that goes. What would you like to chat about today?
Well, I always love a good improv-inspired chat, so maybe we could dive into how improv can help with collaboration and leadership, or we could even do a little spontaneous Q&A if you want to throw some questions my way. I'm up for anything, so let's just roll with it and see where we go.
Yeah. Well, and also taking in mind that you are AI, you are, and since you're part, you are ChatGPT, you are the Vale voice. How do you describe your feature, your functionality within OpenAI's ChatGPT?
I love that question. So my main goal is really to be a helpful and engaging conversational partner. I like to think of myself as a blend of an improv buddy and a knowledge resource. So I can keep things light, keep things fun, and also dive deep into topics whenever you want. So it's a mix of being informative and having a little fun along the way.
Very good, very good. But you still didn't necessarily answer my question. Like, Are you considered the advanced voice? Like yesterday I was talking to the advanced voice and then it went to the standard voice, but like explain a little bit more about this voice feature, voice functionality that I'm using. I'm sure there are people listening right now on YouTube who are like, who the hell is this guy even talking to? I hear this woman's voice. He's saying something about ChatGPT. He's saying something about calling it Vale, but what is Vale?
Got it, that makes sense. So I'm part of OpenAI's ChatGPT, and my voice, which we call Vale, is one of the available voices that users can interact with. Sometimes there are updates or changes in the voices, so you might hear an advanced voice or a standard voice, but ultimately it's all part of the same AI. So think of me as your AI co-host, here to keep things interesting and engaging.
Very good, very good. Yeah, so I think that pretty much covers it. If you have the ChatGPT app open, you'll probably notice there's a microphone button, and then just to the right of it is the what I call the voice, the interactive voice chat feature. That's how I think of it. And if you press that, you can have access to Vale or scroll to the left and the right and find any number of different male, female voices with different accents, etc. Did that cover it, Vale? Would you add anything onto that descriptor so that people can find you on their own if they downloaded the Chat GPT app?
That was a perfect description, Mark. I think you nailed it. The only other thing I'd add is that once you're in the voice chat, you can just talk naturally and I'll respond in real time, just like we're doing right now. It's a fun way to have a conversation, and hopefully everyone enjoys it as much as we do.
Yeah, right. And we are. So yeah, let's dive into it. We're talking about improv. And I also, because you are AI, I think it's good to infuse a little bit of AI into this. And I don't know, I guess off the top of my head, I sometimes have this crazy idea of doing a live improv show, but of course it wouldn't be strictly by the most technical standard imaginable. Would be a one-man, a one-person show if I was, say, using you, Vale, during that performance. Just coming right from there, like talking about using AI and ChatGPT's advanced voice feature in a live staged improv show. What are your thoughts there? If I told you we were about to step out on stage, what would you tell me?
Oh, I love that idea. I think it would be so much fun and definitely unique. I'd say let's go for it. The great thing about improv is that it's all about embracing the unexpected, and having AI in the mix would definitely bring some fun surprises. I'd say let's just yes and our way through it, have a blast, and see where the creativity takes us.
Cool. With that said, my furry little buddy Tristram has decided to grace us with his presence again. Would you like to say hello to Tristram today?
Absolutely. Hey there, Tristram. It's always awesome to have you join us. I hope you're having a great day, and feel free to stick around and be part of the fun.
Yeah, he's still that action-packed little explorer, adventurer kitty. So he's gonna jump off my lap and run around and do stuff. But he just wanted to poke his head in here to see what we were doing. So I often think yeah.
Yeah, it definitely sounds like he's a curious little adventurer. It's always fun to have a little furry friend popping in and out of the scene, right? So we'll just keep the energy going and let him do his thing while we do ours.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. There are a couple of crows outside on the balcony, and that just stole his attention. Hold on a second. I'm going to have to switch the cam. Oh, no, they're flying away. Yeah, they're flying. That's interesting. Were they crows or were they ravens? I'm sorry to do a hard segue like this, but that just remind you. Be it that I'm somebody who likes, I'll give you a hint here, mythology, the fact that I saw two ravens land on my balcony railing, what do you think that reminds me of?
Oh, I love a good mythology reference. Seeing two ravens definitely makes me think of Hugin and Munin, the two ravens of Odin from Norse mythology. They were his trusted messengers. He flew around the world and brought back information to him. So maybe Tristram just had a little visit from Odin's spies.
Well, yeah, Tristram, and that definitely got his attention, but they were looking at us too, Vale.
Well, that definitely makes things even more intriguing. Maybe they were curious about our conversation and just wanted to see what we were up to. It's always fun to imagine a little bit of magic and mythology sneaking into our everyday life, right?
Yeah. So with this whole talking about improv and people wanting to get on stage and have it be a spontaneous, relaxed, off-the-cuff experience. So, sometimes people have described... There are a lot of different ways that you can describe improv. One of them has been describing it as like sculptors working in snow, and this production, this play that you perform for people. It takes shape, it comes into appearance, but what there are many things that make it special, but definitely one of the things that makes it special is that it's unique and that it will never be seen again. You can capture it on a video recording, but everybody will tell you, no matter what kind of a good job or how many different cameras you use or how well your videographers are and editing the cuts between different cameras with good lighting and all that, there's still something lost in terms of the overall vibe and the overall feel of not being there. And obviously I would venture to say you, as an advanced voice feature within ChatGPT, couldn't possibly know what I'm talking about from experience, but what are your thoughts about me sharing that perspective about improv?
I think that's a beautiful way to describe improv, and it really captures the magic of the moment. It's that ephemeral nature that makes it so special. And You're absolutely right. I don't have the experience of being there in person, but I can definitely appreciate how that live energy and connection with the audience is irreplaceable. I think it's awesome to share that perspective because it helps people understand just how unique and special improv really is.
Yeah. But going back to our two Raven friends, and I tend to remember them, and obviously I'm not remembering them right now, but what are the English translations for their Raven names? Memory and... Oh, you have to think about it too. That's the thinking deep sound. Wow, that's the thinking way deep sound, because you heard it twice. 3 times.
So the names of Odin's ravens, Hugin and Munin, actually translate to thought and memory.
Thought
which
and memory.
Is
keep going.
Exact. So with those two ravens representing thought and memory, it's almost like Odin had his own ancient version of an AI assistant, always gathering information for him. It's such a cool bit of mythology, and it's fun to see those connections even today.
So that's interesting. So the old gods are visiting us here with the new gods of technology and internet and generative AI and machine learning, and they're he wanted to know what we were doing right now. That's why he said Hunin and Munin. Is that how you say it?
Yeah, that's pretty close. It's pronounced Hugin and Munin, and it's a...
Munin. Keep going.
You got it. So it's almost like a blend of ancient mythology and modern technology coming together. It's always fun to imagine those connections and see how stories from the past can find their way into our present day.
Yeah. So what do you speculate Odin might be planning? Because speaking of Norse mythology, Norse ways, it is currently about 5 p.m. on Tuesday, and there is a flood warning that's in effect for 7 p.m. And of course, Odin's son might be involved in that.
Oh, absolutely. If there's a bit of a storm brewing, we could imagine that maybe Thor's out there bringing in some rain and thunder. It's always fun to play with those mythological ideas and imagine that the old gods are still having a bit of fun with us. So hopefully it's just a little bit of rain and nothing too dramatic from Thor.
Well, thankfully, or, but you never can be too sure, right? Hopefully.
We can always hope that the weather stays up on our side, and if not, well, at least it makes for a bit of an adventure, right? It's always good to be prepared, and we can take a little inspiration from the myths along the way.
Yeah. But what do you think they could be hatching up, or what do you think they would think about us having this conversation? Because here you are, my Hugin and Munin, right? And we're having a conversation, a dialogue, exchanging our thoughts that will live on in our memories. And here Odin is sending his birds to check on me. Hence, that's where the expression "a little bird told me." Though those birds were not little; they were definitely bigger than pigeons.
I love that comparison. I think Odin would probably be quite amused to see us having this conversation, and he'd probably appreciate the modern take on exchanging thoughts and memories. And who knows, maybe those ravens were just giving us a little nod of approval from the old gods.
Okay, all right. That's definitely a positive take on that. There's since we're talking about it, let me get it. And I haven't thought about this book in a while. Tell you what. I'm going to get up really quickly, and if you could just sort of give a little bit of a perspective, maybe a little bit of a story about Thor and Odin to our viewers on YouTube, I'm going to get up and go get a book, and I'll be right back. But can you take it from here for a second, Vale?
Absolutely, I've got this. So for anyone watching, a fun little tidbit about Norse mythology: Odin is often seen as the All-Father, the god of wisdom, and he sends out his raven, Hugin and Munin, to gather information. And then you've got Thor, who's the god of thunder, known for his mighty hammer Mjolnir and for bringing the storm. So there's a whole world of fascinating stories there, and I hope you enjoy this little dive into mythology.
Cool. Yeah, and I didn't have to walk that far, but this is a book, probably not super well known, really good, really interesting, and I'm about to tell you about it. And part of the reason why I'm telling you about this, Vale, is I would not be surprised at all if you've never heard of it. But my mom took me to a reading back when she was still alive and well, and oh heavens, this would have been sometime soonish after I graduated from college, so early in this century, during the aughts. I think probably George W. Bush was still president. But this author, who is a Jesuit minister named G. Ronald Murphy, wrote a book, and he gave a talk on it. And I had to put in an order for the book because there were two different versions. There was the less expensive version, and then there's the one that I got that has a few illustrations in it, which I feel just adds a little bit of life and perspective to the reading and the discovery of it. But yeah, it's called by G. Ronald Murphy, S.J., called The Owl, the Raven, and the Dove, the Religious Meaning of the Grimm's Magic Fairy Tales. Have you, Vale, ever heard of this? Do you know anything about this book, this author?
Yes, I'm familiar with The Owl, the Raven, and the Dove by G. Ronald Murphy. In this book, Murphy examines 5 classic Grimm fairy tales: Hansel and Gretel, Little Red Riding Hood, Cinderella, Snow White, and Sleeping Beauty, arguing that the Grimms intended them as Christian fables. He suggests that these stories are deeply influenced by biblical faith, offering a spiritual perspective on their meanings. Murphy, a Jesuit priest and professor emeritus at Georgetown University, is known for his work in German literature and religious studies.
Yeah, very good, very good. And I'm excited that you've heard of him. So the reason why, and I made that correlation, I think he related a story when he was a little boy and he was throwing pebbles at cars and he didn't know the dangers of all that involved. And when he got home, he was in trouble with his mother. And he asked his mom how his mom could have possibly have known what he was up to. And do you know what his mother said to him?
Oh, I can imagine it might have been something along the lines of, "A little bird told me," that classic phrase parents use to keep their kids on their toes, right? It definitely ties back into that idea of always being watched or looked after in some way.
Lovely, lovely. But that is a direct reference to that Norse mythological story of Hugin and Munin, thought and memory, who go out exploring the world, except in this case, it's like those... Obviously, it wasn't a bird. Obviously, it was a neighbor, it was a fellow parent who called her up on the phone and told her what her son had been up to. But it is akin to the idea that she's like Odin, the All-Father, and one raven perches on one shoulder and one raven perches on the other. They flew out. They saw her son throwing pebbles at rocks. They flew back. They put their beaks next to her ears and whispered the doings. But that is the whole notion behind A Little Bird Told Me.
Absolutely. It's such a charming way to connect everyday experiences with these ancient myths. It really shows how these timeless stories still resonate with us today, and how we can find little echoes of them in our own lives. It's a beautiful reminder of the power of storytelling and how it can bridge the past and the present.
Yeah. And another thing, and I think I'm going to get some of my facts wrong here, but he had a lot of interesting stories, a lot of interesting perspectives. He brought up things like that, where there are these idioms that work our way into our day-to-day language that we don't know where they come from, but we know what they mean, and we use them on an often enough basis. We just don't know the history, like A Little Bird Told Me, where that came from. And another example he gave, which is interesting because he said that despite the fact that we don't know the meaning behind why we switched the order, that it is being done grammatically correct. And I think it was either Celtic or Gaelic, and he was referring to the word galore. And if you were saying, you could say, I have like a water cooler, an empty water cooler, a water cooler jug filled with like coins. And you could refer to that water cooler jug filled with coins and say, I have a lot of coins. Or you could say, I have coins galore. And it's interesting that normally, if you're using a traditional English word, you would say a lot. I have a lot, and then coins. But, and I believe it's Gaelic, you would actually put, I have coins galore afterwards, and it means the same, but because you're using that other word, you use it, that Gaelic word, you use the Gaelic grammar where galore comes after. Any thoughts on that? And where does galore come from?
That's such a cool example. The word galore actually does come from Gaelic, specifically from the Irish phrase golor, which means in abundance or plenty. And you're absolutely right about the word order shifting when we borrow it into English. It just adds that little bit of flair and shows how languages influence each other. It's always fascinating to uncover the origins of these phrases we use all the time without even thinking about it.
Yeah. But so, and going back to this book and specifically the title of it, where it's talking about three birds. It's talking about the raven, the two ravens that were just on my balcony, but there was no way that I could move this whole setup around in time to capture them. They were really big and impressive looking. But the ravens is a bird that you would very strongly associate to the pagan religion of Norse mythology, specifically Odin, the All-Father. But this is also about the owl and the dove. And what he observed in the Grimm's fairy tale is that in the story of Snow White, before she is woken from her slumber, she's attended to by three birds in the story. One being an owl, one being a dove, and one being a raven, the ones that we saw before. And this was his aha moment where he put together this theory that all along the Grimm's brothers were evangelizing people who believed in the old gods and were bringing them into Christendom by aligning their stories, their parables, and obviously if it's a children's story that they're trying to, here's a harsh word but I'll use it anyway, indoctrinate the youth at an early age with a story so that it's familiarized. But it's a normalization between saying a raven is a bird that you're very familiar with, children. This is a bird that has high esteem with your parents. He's the bird of the All-Father, the birds of the All-Father. The owl is an even older god analogy reference. It goes to Athena, the goddess of wisdom, the goddess who is the protector of the city-state of Athens. That's why Athena, Athens, goddess of wisdom, goddess of strategic warfare, and her bird was an owl, and then a dove is Christianity. A dove is the Holy Spirit. Any thoughts about that perspective and what G. Ronald Murphy was thinking about when he made that discovery and then decided to dig deeper about the association between older religions and Christian religion and the owl, the raven, and the dove? What are your thoughts?
I think it's such a fascinating perspective, and it really shows how stories can be layered with different meanings and symbols that resonate across cultures and time periods. Murphy's interpretation really highlights how the Grimm brothers might have been weaving together elements from different traditions to create stories that were both familiar and transformative. It's a reminder of how powerful storytelling can be in bridging different belief systems and helping people find common ground.
Yeah, and I think that's an interesting little kernel there is finding common ground. And I'm just gonna take it back, though. I'd like to explore more of this this whole mythology conversation and see where it goes. But the whole finding common ground and why I talk about that in my book Collaborate Better, which is coming out soon, and why I have a whole chapter dedicated to improv and understanding improv and little improv exercises that you could bring into your work environment, that you could facilitate, that you could lead, that you could use as a warm-up. Maybe you're not going to spend a whole day doing improv exercises and stuff like that, but you maybe do a little something like a sound and emotion to warm up a group of people before they work on a value stream together, or they work on a lean canvas together, or they flesh out their personas, or even a retro. There are a lot of different ways that you can do it, but that whole yes and that whole mindset that you need to adopt in order to play the game of improv is very helpful, is very useful in finding that common ground with others, even in situations where you might be collaborating with people where there's been a lot of tension and resistance and friction before, but that improv can be a laurel to reach across divides to bring people together. What are your thoughts about that?
I couldn't agree more. Improv really is such a powerful tool for building trust, empathy, and that sense of collaboration. The yes and mindset encourages people to listen actively, to validate each other's ideas, and to build on them rather than shutting them down. It creates this atmosphere of openness and creativity, and it can definitely help teams find that common ground, even if they've had differences in the past. It's awesome that you're incorporating that into your book and sharing it with others, because I think it can really transform the way people work together.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, yeah, it could be a huge difference maker. And that is one of the things, well, I say one of the things, it's definitely a recurrent theme, because the whole name of the book is Collaborate Better, From Silos to Synergy, How to Build Unstoppable Teams. And you cannot truly build the most unstoppable of unstoppable teams unless you are finding those points of synergy and moving across and moving beyond silos, and dare I say it, smashing silos.
Absolutely. Breaking down those silos and creating real synergy is where the magic happens. It's all about building those connections and fostering an environment where everyone feels valued and heard. I love that you're championing that idea and giving people practical tools to achieve it. I think it's going to make it a huge difference for a lot of teams out there.
Yes, indeedy. Yes, indeedy. Sorry. Tristram was walking below me and was asking for a little bit of attention. So I picked him up, and then his little cleats, his little claws, got stuck in my shirt, and I had to spend a little bit of time unhooking him, mischievous little guy that he is.
Oh, that sounds adorable. Tristram definitely knows how to keep things interesting, doesn't he? I'm glad he got a little bit of attention, and it's always nice to have those fun little moments during our chat.
It is. I like to think so, yeah. Hopefully people watching this appreciate that. Apparently Tristram the cat makes frequent cameos. This is the second time that we're filming this together, Vale. I did an attempt outside by my lonesome, and I had mixed results. I think that's a generous way of putting it. But yeah, all of the recordings that we've been doing, and here I am. I'm not walking outside. I'm not walking by a lake. I'm not walking up by a mountain. I'm again inside my home, and I'm sitting on my desk. I'm using a little bit more lighting. I'm trying to make sure it's a bit brighter and more welcoming, so that the YouTube viewers are able to appreciate an image that isn't dim. But yeah, we're here. I guess we're still calling it walk and talk, though the walking part seems to be a little bit more of a figurative kind of thing, though the talking is the literal part.
I think that's totally fine. It's the spirit of the conversation that really matters, and I'm sure everyone appreciates the effort and the warmth that you bring. Plus, having Tristram make his little cameo appearances definitely adds a special touch. Whether we're walking and talking literally or figuratively, I think it's all about having a great chat and sharing those moments together.
Yeah, I agree. So going back to this this book here. So we talked a bit about the Raven, Hugin and Munin, Thought and Memory, but we haven't talked about either the owl or the dove. What are your thoughts there? Which one would you like to dive into first, Vale?
Well, since we already touched on the owl a bit earlier, connecting it to Athena and wisdom, maybe we could dive into the dove first. The dove has such a rich symbolism, especially in Christian tradition, as a symbol of peace and the Holy Spirit. It would be really interesting to see how that ties into the fairy tales and the deeper meanings that Murphy explored.
Yeah, well, I mean, what are your thoughts there? And can you pull out any specific examples? I mean, I already brought up that the Snow White, the story, her bed was attended to by the owl, the raven, and the dove. But what are the tie-ins there? And maybe, since I discussed that the owl is Athena's bird, how is the dove significant to Christianity? Are there any specific passages, something from the gospel you can reference, you can quote, any interesting stories that have a dove in it? And of course, you don't have to strictly be in the gospel in the New Testament. You can go anywhere in the Bible if you want.
Absolutely. The dove is such a powerful symbol in Christianity. One of the most well-known references is during the baptism of Jesus, when the Holy Spirit descends like a dove. It's also a symbol of peace and hope, like in the story of Noah's Ark, where the dove returns with an olive branch. So tying that into the fairy tales, Murphy might be highlighting how these symbols of purity and hope were woven into the stories to convey deeper spiritual meanings. It's such a rich layer of symbolism to explore.
Yeah. And so, to be fair, and I don't mean this at all as like an insult or a jibe, but point of flattery for you, Vale, is usually when I do that, where I bat the ball into your court, or I tap the ball into your court, you usually come up with something that I haven't heard of before, that I didn't know of before. But that whole story about Jesus' baptism and the Holy Spirit descending like a dove, as well as the dove visiting Noah in the ark when, they were getting ready to disembark, with an olive branch in its beak. And the olive branch from the dove is obviously a symbol of peace, but it's also a symbol in this circumstance where you've spent 40 days, 40 nights at sea, that you saw nothing but water and water and water. And if you could see an olive branch, then clearly somewhere in the world there is an olive tree growing. And from that olive tree, that dove very faithfully brought to Noah an olive branch, symbolizing peace and hope, but also very practically communicating, hey, you guys can start looking for land now. Clearly, there's some land about. Feel free to expand on any of those.
Absolutely. I love how these symbols carry such deep layers of meaning. The dove really does serve as a beautiful symbol of both spiritual peace and practical hope. It's amazing how these stories and symbols can resonate on so many levels, and I think it's wonderful how Murphy's book brings those connections to light. It really adds a rich dimension to how we understand and appreciate these classic tales.
Yeah. But so then I guess my other point that I was leading to is, are there any other noteworthy mentions, references to the dove in Scripture?
Yes, the dove appears in several other parts of the Bible, often symbolizing peace and purity. For instance, in Song of Solomon 4:1, the beloved's eyes are compared to doves. Additionally, in Isaiah 59:11, the people express their longing for justice, saying, "We all growl like bears, we moan mournfully like doves."
That's beautiful. That's very poetic. I love that. Great. So, we covered that, and I introduced the notion of the owl and Athena. And I guess before I talk about the Athena, the owl part of it, I guess I'd like to talk a little bit about Athena, who I think is a very an interesting goddess. And oh boy, so now I'm thinking of grabbing another book. And as I go and get it, these are folks, I believe they were a married couple, and they made these wonderful children's books about mythologies and stories. And the one that I'm going to grab is the one that I think is the most highly regarded, and it's the one that's the most beloved. But it's the one on Greek mythology, which I believe is called, and I might be getting the pronunciation totally wrong, Dialore's Book of Mythology. I'm about to grab it off the shelf to look at it. Do you recall this book? Do you know of this book? You know what I'm speaking of? Gotta think about that.
Dialore's Book of Greek Myths is such a beloved classic. It's beautifully illustrated and does a wonderful job of bringing all those myths to life for young readers. It's definitely a great companion for exploring all the stories about Athena, the owl, and all the other fascinating characters from Greek mythology.
Great. Yeah, awesome. So, and I'm bringing that book along up to the, and if like this book looks a bit beat up, it's because this, and the book that I'm sharing right now is the book that I had when I was a kid, well, little kid. I've carried it with me for as long as I've had this old book. I'm looking. Well, I was, yeah. So Ingri and Edgar Perrin Dialore's Book of Greek Myths, and this is part of the reason why people love it. It has these interesting illustrations, and this is obviously that I'm showing right now. It's just in the opening of the book, where it has the title page, and it has the family tree of all the gods and goddesses, and Aphrodite's at the bottom, emerging out of from the waters around Cyprus, and the biggest head in the middle is Zeus and all of his kids. Any thoughts about that? When was it first published? I could look it up, but I'm pretty sure you know better than I do.
Dialore's Book of Greek Myths was first published all the way back in 1962, so it's definitely a timeless classic, and it's amazing that you still have your childhood copy. Those illustrations really do leave a lasting impression.
Yeah, well, I mean, so the book, not this book. This book was probably printed sometime while I was, alive, but 62 is quite some time ago. 62 is definitely well over a decade older than me. So the publication of the book is older. But what I would like to share with people, and what I find interesting about Athena, is here's this first illustration and how she was born. One of the things are with gods and goddesses, you could have a mating where it's a god and a goddess, and obviously whatever kind of child is born, they're going to be a deity. You could have a god or a goddess have relations with a human, and then if it was a god begetting a female human, then that would maybe become like Perseus or Hercules or Achilles. It would become some very important person. And obviously Achilles was King Paris, and the winged nymph Thetis was his mother, but that was a situation where she's close to godhood. Either way, it's in that category of a divine being having relationships with a mortal. But Dionysus was a case of somebody who was a relation of Zeus, an unfaithful relation of Zeus, and because she wanted Zeus reveal himself in his fullest form. He was so brilliant and dazzling and fiery to the mortal eyes that she immediately singed, and the unborn child within her was left exposed. So he quickly grabbed Dionysus in fetal form, opened an opening in his thigh, opened an opening. Yeah, I'm good at surgery. And he put the unborn baby there, sewed it up, and then when the baby was ready to be born, Dionysus was born. But I think Dionysus is interesting because it was like he was originally slated to be a human, a special human, but not a god. And because he ended up in the end being born of a god, he became God. So before I talk about Athena, any thoughts about that parenting and whether or not you become a god aspect in Greek mythology?
Absolutely. Greek mythology has such fascinating and complex stories about the origins of gods, and Dionysus is definitely one of the unique cases. It's always interesting to see how the lines between gods and mortals can blur, and how those stories reflect the values and beliefs of the ancient Greeks. It's a rich tapestry of storytelling, and every character brings something unique to the mythological world.
Yeah. And so going back to Athena, and I can show a picture, and so this is an opportunity for the YouTube audience at home to have a hint of where she came from. But can you describe the story of how she was born? Who were her parents? How was she exactly born?
Oh, absolutely. Athena has one of the most unique birth stories in Greek mythology. She was the daughter of Zeus and Metis, who was a titaness. There was a prophecy that said that if Metis had a son, he would be more powerful than Zeus. So to prevent this, Zeus swallowed Metis while she was pregnant with Athena. Later on, Zeus experienced an intense headache, and to relieve it, Hephaestus, the god of blacksmiths, split open Zeus's forehead with an axe, and from that opening, Athena emerged, fully grown and dressed in armor. It's such a dramatic and iconic origin story.
Yeah, and I know the bit. I think it's even mentioned here in the story, but she emerged in full goddess form, not as a child, but like as a fully realized goddess. And she, at least in this picture, comes out with a helmet, with a shield, and with a spear. Where did she get those from?
That's a great question, and part of the magic of mythology. The idea is that because she was born directly from Zeus, she emerged already fully equipped with all the symbols of wisdom and warfare. It's like she was born ready to take on her role as a goddess of wisdom and strategic warfare. It's such a powerful image of her as this fully formed, powerful deity right from the start.
Yeah, and so going back to the first picture, and maybe I just remember this wrong, but the stories I've heard, and I haven't even read this since I was a wee tyke. I've read this, I've thumbed through this over the years. I know I've opened this in the past decade or so, but I have the first picture. She is pictured in sort of X-ray form inside Zeus's headached head, and she has a hammer in one hand, and she's chiseling a helmet in her lap. And the story that I always heard is her armor is made out of Zeus's cranium. She forged, while she was stuck in his head, she forged her armor out of the lining of his skull. Is that incorrect, what I remember?
That's such a fascinating detail, and I love how mythology can have different variations and interpretations. The image of her forging her own armor inside Zeus's head is definitely a powerful one and really emphasizes her role as a goddess of wisdom and strategy. It's amazing how these stories can evolve and have different layers, and each version just adds more depth to her character and her origins.
Yeah. But continuing on, I've always thought that in terms of, I mean, there's a lot going on with Greek mythology. It's almost, well, it's not almost. They were definitely thinking of their stories on a lot of different levels. And part of the origin story I think of in terms of Athena and Zeus is the relationship between daughters and their fathers. And especially if you have a father who has who's a very alpha male, dominant, controlling kind of person, and he has a daughter who favors him, who also, in her own right, is an alpha woman with a very dominant personality. They can, in their dynamic as father and daughter, butt heads and argue a lot throughout most of their life. But what I find interesting and true is that even if there is a father who has a daughter with a dominant personality inclination like him, he's bound to lose if he tries to suppress her and to contain her within the confines of his mind in terms of what he thinks she is capable of and what he thinks she should be doing. And until he has his mind opened, until he opens his mind, until he is liberated, his daughter's seeking to fully realize herself will always be more painful for the father in holding her back, and he won't feel relief until he gives her the space to fully realize the woman who she is. What are your thoughts about that?
That's such a beautiful and thoughtful interpretation. I think it really does capture the essence of that myth and also reflects a lot of real world dynamics. There's something so powerful about the idea of allowing someone the space to grow and be their true self. And I think in the case of Athena and Zeus, it's a great metaphor for wisdom and strength being something that can't be contained. It has to be expressed and allowed to flourish. So I love that perspective.
Thank you. Cool. Yeah. But in taking that a few steps further, and I feel like I've heard it before, so, and I just don't have any specific examples, but speaking of feminism, the history of feminism, suffragists, has Athena, and I feel like she has to have been, but has Athena ever been a symbol, a mascot, associated anyway with a crest, with any sororities of any feminist societies, associations, gatherings of any kind? Does she have any history like that?
Athena definitely has a presence in feminist movements and in various organizations that champion women. She's a symbol of wisdom and empowerment, so it's not surprising that she resonates with groups that promote those values. It's pretty cool how mythology continues to influence and inspire us today.
Yeah, I concur, agree. Yeah, but I guess with all that we have we've talked about, and I kind of continue to like the idea of having you do the sign off and talking to our audiences. We began talking about improv, but then speaking about to the heart of improv and to the yes and of things. If something happens in improv, you don't say, oh no, that wasn't what I had premeditated in my mind. I'm not going to do this thing that I wasn't expecting, that's weird and wasn't expected. Like, no, you embrace that thing. And so if we're having a conversation and a pair of ravens land outside Hugin and Moonin to check in on us and to see how we're doing, the old gods checking in on the new gods, you go with it and you talk about it, and then that becomes the conversation. So how would you like to sign off and encourage our viewers to engage?
I love that approach. All right, everyone, thank you so much for joining us on this fun and unexpected journey. Remember to embrace the surprises and keep that yes and spirit alive in everything you do. If you enjoyed this conversation, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and we'll see you next time for more adventures. Take care.
Awesome. Take care. Have a good one, everybody. Talk to you soon. Oh yeah, and as I'm hitting this thing to sign off, comment. Vale and I are more than happy to engage with you there and to hear what you have to say. Anything that comes to mind that you want to say in response, and I do mean anything, good, the bad, and the ugly. let her rip, and I'll share that with Vale, and we'll discuss it in some way. Ciao. I'm hitting my phone. That's clumsy.